Hey everyone, welcome to the Road to Tenby podcast. My name's Tom Davis, your host, and today I'm joined by a very, very special guest. This guest is based in Ireland, very smiley, as you can all see on the video for anybody watching on YouTube. And I'd like to introduce Joanne Murphy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a lovely day in the west of Ireland in Galway. I really like your backdrop. I'm actually getting goosebumps looking at your backdrop.
It's a belter.
Really miss Wales.
Yeah, it's a perler. So Joanne, just for anybody who's listening and they might think, well, you know, I don't really know Joanne, but I kind of recognize her voice a little bit. Give the listeners a bit of a background on you and what you do and what you're all about.
Oh gosh, well, I suppose I'm the Irish voice on the Ironman finish line. I'm lucky to have worked with Ironman since 2011 when we had the Ironman 70.3 for the very first time in Galway, in Salthill. And my very first Ironman Wales was in 2012, where I worked the finish line with Paul Kay. It was absolutely fantastic. My background really in terms of business and sport is I was a fundraising manager for a local disability charity here in Ireland, and then I moved into fundraising for the Irish Cancer Society, which would be the equivalent, I guess, really of Macmillan. And in the midst of doing all of that, Ironman presenting happened. I took up triathlon in 2009, I think it was. I couldn't swim. I got a friend of mine to do the swim portion of a sprint distance race in a relay, and I did the run and the bike, or the bike and the run, and I absolutely was hooked. Got myself to a pool, started training with a friend of mine, joined Galway Tri Club, and the rest is history. I've raced at all levels of triathlon. I've done a full distance Ironman, but not an Ironman. I raced in Challenge Road, so I'm not an Ironman.
Oh, wow.
Yet. Hopefully that will come sooner than later. And perfect reason to start training again is during COVID-19. You kind of start to think about where you might like to race again in the future. And I gave up a full-time job in 2015 after being in Kona, going over there for a bit of fun to celebrate my mum's, I think it was her 65th birthday. Yeah, that'll be right, her 65th birthday. Wow. We went to Kona. She really wanted to go. She absolutely loves supporting athletes and the races. And we went over, and I was doing a little bit of work for Tri 247 with the athletes, and I loved it. And I came home and I thought, this is really where I want to be. I want to be full-time in sport. So at the start of 2016, I gave up my job and kind of went full-time into Try Talking Sport, which is now my company. And I've worked in event management and marketing for events and sports marketing for events over the past couple of years, and really just trying to, I suppose, spread my wings as a presenter and an announcer. And I work now with some of the governing bodies like Athletics Ireland and Triathlon Ireland, and Gymnastics Ireland actually is my other really big favourite with triathlon is gymnastics. Funnily enough, I didn't have a clue about gymnastics in 2016, and now I am the voice of gymnastics in Ireland. Love working with the team there, all their national competitions, and have my own podcast, as you know, Tom, and really enjoying it. Just absolutely love being immersed in sport and in triathlon, really.
Awesome. It sounds like you got a lot going on there, to be fair.
Even during COVID-19 lockdown, it was quiet. We started doing some Facebook Lives and things like that to try and stay connected with the triathlon community. There's such a huge part of my life, and triathlon is such a huge part of my life, that when we went into lockdown and you're basically talking to yourself because you're talking to a laptop or to the four walls in the house every day, I really miss it, and I really miss announcing. And I really miss the athletes, you know, and I miss the banter and the fun and just seeing people achieve, you know, their goals, whether that's a sprint race, whether it's a 5K, whether it's a triathlon, whether it's an Ironman, you know, there's still that same sense of accomplishment, and you've the privilege of being on a finish line to say, well done, or you are an Ironman, or whatever it is, you know. Somebody sent me a video today of a race in October last year where the girl who had won, it was her third marathon, and she won the race, and I realized during it that I knew who she was, even though I didn't really know who she was. And I was actually really crying watching the video today, because I was like, I just want to be announcing again. I really just want to be.
I bet. So, you know, you said you give up your job in 2015, was it? How did you, so if you've done announcing then between kind of like 2011 and 2015, kind of how did you get into that kind of like MC kind of role with Ironman? Because like my background, as we alluded to before we started recording, I've got a golfing background. I've done a little bit of public speaking, and it's really not easy to do unless you're doing it like a lot. And I've actually like overcome a bit of a public speaking fear, to be fair. It was like quite bad. But yeah, just really interesting, kind of like for me personally, more than anything, like how you got into that, and like how did you develop the skills? Did you go on any courses? Did you have like a mentor at the time?
Yeah, it's funny, I suppose. I did speech and language, or not speech and language, speech and drama as a kid. I was always probably into a little bit of acting and a little bit of showboating, and I loved watching telly. I loved watching the presenters on the TV. I always, I think from a young age, wanted to be on the television. I think that's, you know, if you go back through, my mum will often say, you know, you always wanted to be on the telly, and you just kind of say it as an off the cuff thing, and you never really think about it consciously, but maybe subconsciously it's always in the back of your head. So in fundraising, obviously you're giving a lot of presentations to people, you're presenting checks, or you're being presented with checks, and you're talking about a charity, or you're talking about the work that a charity is doing. So you kind of get over that fear of public speaking. But actually one of the very first public things I did was I was working for Use the Travel in Ireland when I left college. And we used to present to students who wanted to travel to the States on the J1 visa for 3 months, and we do a road show. So you were always kind of talking to people, you were presenting in schools and things like that. And I guess even through college, I was probably always very vocal. I wasn't afraid to stand up in front of a crowd. So I don't have any formal training, but I know what's good and I know what I don't like. So I try to emulate the people that are good. Like Graham Norton is an unreal presenter. He's an unreal host. I love his style. I love the way he does things. In Ireland, Tommy Tiernan, who's a comedian, I don't know, maybe you've heard of him. As a comedian, he's very funny. Wouldn't be my style of comedian, but as a host and presenter, a TV presenter, he's exceptional. So I suppose I watch what other people do, and I listen to what other people do, and things that annoy me, I know will annoy other people when they're listening to what I'm doing. So I, especially, you know, on a podcast or a live interview, I try to emulate those that are good, like you do in training. You'll train with people that are stronger than you and faster than you, so you aim to be better every day. And I suppose if you can be 1% better at something every day that you do it, then eventually you'll become 100% better than what you were previously. So how I got into announcing with Ironman was I was heavily involved in the Tri Club in Galway. I was on the aquathon committee, so I had been the beginners officer with the club, and then we were hosting an aquathon, so I was on that committee. And we realized about 3 days before the event that, jeepers, we're going to have all this music, but there's nobody on the microphone. And I said, sure, I'll do it. I don't mind. We'll make up stories about people that are there. And because I was beginners officer, I kind of knew everybody. I knew them to see, and I basically said, look, don't be offended if I make something up about you. I'm only doing it for the crack and a bit of fun. And the guys that were bringing Ironman Ireland to Galway at the time were there. They were part of the Tri Club as well. And one of them said, listen, Ireland's coming to Galway in September. Will you be our voice? You know, will you be the Irish person? I was like, no, I'm training for Ironman. I'm not, you're cracked, no way. I've been training since January. The race was in September. And actually, unfortunately, I had a fracture in my pelvis that I didn't know about. So about 3 weeks later, I met the guys and I said, listen, I'm actually injured. I've had to pull out of Ironman 70.3 Galway. Is that job still available? You know, will you still have me? They were like, yeah, absolutely. And the rest is history. Genuinely, wow. That's how it happened. Anybody who's listening that was actually at Galway 70.3 will know that we had to shorten the swim. The weather was atrocious. People got hypothermia. The timing system was perfect, but the timing system to the laptop that had all the information on the athletes went down. So, you know, when we're doing all the commentary, you know, people are like, how do you know everybody? We don't know everybody. The timing system tells us who's come across the timing map. So on the morning of the race, and it was Mike Riley, actually. It was the first time I had ever met the Voice of Ironman. So it was a real baptism of fire. And at that stage as well, Ironman was, and still is, you know, the brand that you want to work for, or that I certainly wanted to work with and be associated with. You know, it's like, you know, you think about, when I was thinking about fundraising, the Irish Cancer Society was who I wanted to work with. I wanted a job in the #1 cancer charity in the country, you know, very ambitious in terms of where you want to go and what you want to do. So when the sound system, so I was in the back of a van, I had a laptop, I'd done loads of research on all the athletes. It's lashing rain and the athletes are coming in from the swim, they're going out on their bikes and I'm having great crack and fun and looking up every swath. And bearing in mind it's the first time I've ever presented at an Ironman race on an international level, thousands of people in Salt Hill. You kind of have to forget that you've all these people around you. So anyway, the system went down. I was like, well, what am I going to do? Oh my God, like I'm here, I have a microphone, there's music. The athletes are coming back in off the bike course. And whilst the timing was working, the connection to the laptop wasn't. And, you know, you'd be kind of wary of like, well, am I allowed into transition? Will I take a chance and take the microphone into transition and let's just stand at the entrance of transition? And that's what I did for 4 hours. Wow. I stood there. I had no information on anybody other than their race kit. I knew some people, but in a race of, you know, a couple of, I think there's probably like 1,800 or 2,000 people, you kind of wing it. And that's what I did. And that was it. And I worked the finish line that time for the very first time with Mike. And yeah, it's just the start of a wonderful career. And I absolutely love it. I love it.
It's amazing. It's amazing how like things like just work out in their own little ways, isn't it? You know, like you think about it, if you didn't get that injury to your pelvis, you know, just none of it might not have ever happened. You know, it's incredible how kind of like life takes you on a journey, and yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer that there's a silver lining in every cloud, and
Sure.
I've kind of taken that kind of attitude towards lockdown and COVID-19 as well. You know, I was saying to you earlier that I absolutely love announcing, and I really miss not meeting people and not seeing people and not having that connection with the community. But for me, the silver lining on the cloud has been the opportunity to take a step back, to look at like how busy I was and what I was doing, and really pick the things that I really want to do in the future. And you know, we're pushing out the podcast, we're doing the Facebook Lives, I'm doing stuff like I'm swimming nearly every morning that I get out of bed, I'm getting more training done, I'm spending more time at home, I'm getting things done that I wouldn't have gotten done, I'm meeting people or talking to people I wouldn't have seen in ages now, albeit a lot of it is over Zoom. But I think we've become a lot more connected through COVID, and for me that's a silver lining on a very big cloud, because it looks like I won't be on a finish line again until the end of August, potentially, if even that early, you know. And obviously we know at this stage that Ironman Wales isn't going ahead, which is really disappointing for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking earlier, it's I think it was inevitable. But at the same time, it's so disappointing. I mean, me personally, along with all the other athletes that's been training, you know, put so much work into this point. But again, the silver lining is the fact that we get to do it all again next year, and fingers crossed, faster. So yeah.
About an Ironman as well, and Mike would allude to this very much, though, that an Ironman isn't just about the 140.6 miles you complete on the day. It's actually about the journey that you take, those very first steps to actually deciding you're going to do it and then signing up to it, because we become stronger, fitter, faster, mentally, physically, emotionally, by taking on a big challenge. And for most people, I would say that doing an Ironman is a massive achievement, whether it's the first one or the 21st one. But it's not just about that day, it's about everything that you go through. It's a bit like life. It's like everything you go through to get to that point. And very disappointing for everyone. I mean, the start line of Wales is one of the most favorite things I ever do every year.
Yeah, it's amazing. So like for you, you've been the MC at Ironman Wales since 2012, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, my first ever full distance announcing job was Wales.
Oh wow.
I think we had a storm.
It's highly likely. I mean, I wasn't at the event, but if I was to put any money on it raining and being poor weather, then I would. So, you know, like your first impressions of Ironman Wales and Tenby, when you first got to the event, did you know much about the event before you got there, and kind of what Tenby was all about and kind of the setting and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I had visited Tenby as a child, funnily enough.
Ah, wow.
We had travelled to Kiln Park years ago with the trailer tent. many years ago as a family, when there used to be the ferry from Cork to Swansea, because I'm from Cork originally, in the very southern tip of Ireland. And
Yeah,
so I was aware of it. So actually for me, going to Tenby that first year was very special,
I
because it
bet.
brought back some childhood memories. But Tenby it reminds me of a village in the west of Galway, in Roundstone. And even looking at your backdrop now with all the coloured houses, we have coloured houses like that in Salthill, which is just down the road from me here. But actually out in Roundstone, the scenery isn't exactly the same, the profile isn't the same, but the houses bring back, the memories, and it's just such a fun place to be, and it's beautiful. I love Tenby, and the people are so welcoming. Like, that's the
Yeah,
big thing as well. You're bringing, or Ironman are bringing a team of so many people into a community. You're bringing thousands of athletes, thousands of spectators, but Tenby opens up its arms to Ironman. I think I said it last year, Ironman loves Tenby and Wales, but Wales equally loves Ironman back. And that was the genuine feeling that
I
I got
agree.
from the town and the people. And it's such I suppose the hub of the race happens in such a small area that everything logistically is easy from say my perspective. Maybe not for those that are staying a little bit further out that have to get into Tenby in the morning
Yeah,
before the race. But it's just you feel like you're part of the neighborhood. When
yeah.
you go there, you're just welcomed by everybody. It is fabulous. It's a very special place.
Yeah, I agree, and it's almost like the residents of Tenby and the surrounding areas have almost like, it's almost part of the culture there now. It's like, if you're from Tenby, you just need to do the Ironman, and it's it's incredible.
It's like as if they've adopted us. I don't know. There's a
Yeah,
very special feeling when you and I'm always excited going to Tenby as well. And it's not the last race in the calendar. I think it was the last race in the calendar one year, but there's just something special. But every race has something special. But for me, I think personally, because it was my first long distance, because of those childhood memories as well, I just love it. And I think one
yeah,
year I actually drove over 2 years, and I bought my bike, and I got to go cycle some of the route as well, which is something I don't always get to do, which is unfortunate, because we do get to go to such lovely places. It's a pity that
yeah.
we don't get to, but when you're flying across for 4 days, it's not feasible to bring your bike. But I think that one year, I think we had back-to-back races, Wales and Weymouth, so I was able to bring my bike and have a bit of fun.
Ah, nice. Yeah, I bet that was nice. In my last job, it was kind of just reminded me of the way in which you were talking about it there, about kind of like experiencing the event and maybe going out for a cycle. In my previous job, I was working on the European tour, and we would travel literally all around the world, visiting kind of like the best golf courses in the world, working with the best athletes. And everyone used to say to us, "Oh, did you get a chance to play?" And I was like, no, I just seen the hotel, a taxi, the driving range, and a plane, and that was it. And it must seem quite similar for you, traveling around everywhere, going to all the different events, and yeah, just reminded me of that.
Yeah, and it's great. And sometimes, especially on a new course, I'll always try and get a lift around the course, or drive around the course, or, I suppose now with Google Maps, you can kind of go in and you can look at the different satellite images, and you can kind of see where all the twists and turns are. But when you're presenting the briefing, you want to know what you're talking about. You don't want to stand up and, talk willy-nilly about a turn here or a turn there, or a dangerous piece, where there might be a steep ascent or a steep descent. You want to actually talk with conviction that that
Yeah.
you've seen it and what it's going to be like for the athletes when they're out on the course on the day.
Yeah. So your first event, 2012, fast forward to 2019, how much has the event kind of like changed and evolved? Because I don't know many people who've been to, almost every event, and you're probably the best person to ask.
I think 2011 would have been the first one, wouldn't it? Yeah, 2011, because it would have been 10 years this
Exactly,
year.
yeah.
So I've only missed the first one. It's gotten better every year. Every
Yeah.
year it's gotten better. And that start line for me is just incredible. And in 2019, it was a very special year. We had Facebook Watch, which was a big deal for the town of Tenby and for the surrounding areas. And whilst the hub of the activity is in Tenby, I mean, there's so many other communities that are affected by, Ironman, and it's bringing people through those towns and villages, which is amazing as well. But Facebook Watch was coming, and Sam was the race director, and he organised for the pyrotechnics to have the flames, because
Yeah.
Tenby, the dragon, and it was Tame the Dragon. So as you know, if you race in Ireland and the UK at an Ironman event, Thunderstruck is the song that everybody trains to, and everybody, once they hear that song going, after the national anthem, it's race go. And I think the spectators are beginning to understand that as well, because you can just feel the tension in the air with the start of the race. So what's very special about Tenby as well, I think, is the fact that it's a natural amphitheater, and we can see on your backdrop there that you've all the athletes on the beach. We're generally just to the right of that white building that's down low by the trees there.
Yeah.
That's where the DJ and the DJ setup, or I suppose the sound system setup is. And we can feel the pulsating energy around us from the athletes, but also from the spectators that are up high, because they line that whole area. So you play that Welsh national anthem, and I'm a proud Irish person, but the Welsh national anthem gives me goosebumps every time I hear it.
I've got goosebumps now, even just thinking about it. I've got to be honest.
Goosebumps. And then, we had decided that on the first strike of the guitar chord on Thunderstruck, we would set for the pyrotechnics to go off as a surprise. Nobody knew about them, except myself and Jay, I think, knew about them as well. I think Brian was with us. Was it Brian or John was in Wales with us last year? I can't remember off the top of my head. But we had the pyrotechnics anyway, and 27 seconds in, that was when, on the Thunderstruck, that we were going to hit the pyrotechnics. And I remember saying to the pyrotechnics guy before, I said, I have all of this queued up like to within a millisecond. If you don't hit this on the right time, it's going to be ruined. I think I stressed him out completely. On that 27 into the 28th second, I think it was 27, 28 or 28, 29, he hit boom, and you just had this like the fire, the team, that it was just incredible. Oh my God. I remember seeing Laura Siddle and Lucy Gossage just standing around and taking it all in, and you get such a sense of pride out of seeing what you're creating. The race director obviously is creating a phenomenal event with his team, or her team, and all the moving parts that are there, but then we each get to play our own part. And I was so incredibly proud of the start that we had delivered as a team for the athletes and for the spectators, but also for Wales and of course Facebook Watch. And it was just a really proud moment. I actually getting goosebumps thinking about it now. You're just, everything is down to the millisecond. When you're doing a production piece like that, so from 6 o'clock in the morning, you've picked your songs, what music you're going to play pretty much, what songs are going to come in, if it's a 7 o'clock start, the national anthem might take a minute and a half, you need 30 seconds either side of that. You press the button on 6:57, 30. If it's 10 seconds late, you've missed a beat somewhere, and that affects the roll on of the different bits and pieces. And a lot of it comes down to timing on my piece for that morning section when you're live at 6 in the morning till race starts. And once I get really nervous. It's funny, it's hard to believe, people don't believe it, but I get really nervous at about half an hour before the race starts, because you want everything to be perfect. You don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to hit the wrong national anthem, God forbid. But you also want to make sure that you have created this lovely, safe, wonderful atmospheric environment for the athletes, that they're, whilst all riled up, ready to go, that they actually feel like you're giving them a big virtual hug as well.
Yeah.
They've left their families, they've handed over their bags, they've left everything up in transition. They're not going to probably see their families again until the finish line, or their supporters, even though they'll see them along the way. And they have the athletes, but you just want them to feel comfortable yet excited about what they're about to undertake. And I remember high-fiving the lads last year, just going, oh my God, we nailed it. I'm so proud of us as a team.
Yeah.
And I do think it was John that was with us in Wales last year. And we just really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing to hear kind of like how precise all of the planning is, with the songs and the timing and everything. And like I didn't compete last year, but I was down on the beach, and the pyrotechnics took me by surprise as well. But like I don't think you appreciate kind of like all the planning and everything that goes into it. And to hear you saying that it's got to be on that 27 second, no later than that, it's amazing really. And to know that you pulled it off as well, it must feel so satisfying.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And the other thing as well is it's important that we engage with the athletes and the spectators. So you know yourself, I mean, I train with music when I'm training. I like to have music on the turbo. I would listen to the odd podcast, and or I might watch a little bit of Netflix if I'm doing an easier session, or a session that doesn't need to have, like, you know, you're not absolutely killing yourself on the bike or running. But for me, music is hugely powerful. So when athletes are training for their race, they obviously listen to music as well. And you want to bring some of that back in to their race day experience. So we would reach out to some of the Facebook groups and go, right, lads, we're putting the DJ play, or our own, we don't have a DJ in most cases, we're putting the playlist together. Tell us what songs you're training to, so that when you're giving it socks out in the swim course, you can hear it, or when you're coming in through transition, you might hear your favorite song. For me, when I did Challenge Roth, it was Avicii, Wake Me Up When It's All Over. I will never ever forget that song. It was on the start line the minute I got in the water, and I was like, oh, this is it. Every time I hear that song, I get goosebumps.
That's class.
You know, so, and music is so powerful because it's the same for everybody across the board. It can provide such good and bad memories, but hopefully primarily good memories. And being able to have somebody say, oh my God, that's my song, I feel really comfortable now that they've played it. Or, you know, it's the same with Thunderstruck.
Yeah.
It's universal almost.
Yeah. I mean, definitely when you're on the turbo, and if Thunderstruck comes on or you put it on, there's definitely an extra 20 or 30 watts available just from that song coming on. And like you say, it is very, very powerful when you're training, and to know that you put all of that effort into trying to create that environment for all the athletes is just amazing, to be fair.
But I think it's part of what Ironman is as well, though, because it's about experience. And it's not just about the athletes, it's about the spectators as well, because we want the spectators to be there for the athletes. And we often say they're the free energy for the athletes on the day, or the free legal doping for the athletes. And that's true, and so is music, and it can be so powerful. And it's important that we get it right. Because there's so many moving parts with a race, and so many things can go wrong on the day for an athlete, from a puncture, or a goggle's gone off in the swim, or, you know, they get a cramp or a stitch. And our job is to make them feel like a superhero, and to make sure that they enjoy it, because that's what we can control. So from our perspective as announcers, we can control, hopefully, the atmosphere. We can create a really good atmosphere and get everybody behind the athletes, so that they do achieve that goal of finishing an Ironman or a 70.3 or whatever it is, the race that they're doing. So 2019 was a bit of a tough day for me, because I was really sick. I lost my voice. I think I did 7 or 8 briefings over the course of the weekend. I got some form of laryngitis, picked up an infection, and woke up on the Sunday morning. I think it was Sunday morning. It was probably 2 a.m. when I woke up to get out of bed, and I couldn't talk. I was oh my God, this is a nightmare. This is the worst thing that could happen. And because Wales was such a big race last year with Facebook Watch, there was extra pressure. And I was just it was really hard. It was a really, really tough day, mentally and emotionally, for me, because I was so worried about not being able to deliver on what I wanted to deliver for the athletes, from an atmosphere perspective, and from calling people an Ironman, which is a huge privilege. It's very stressful.
I bet. Is like a 2 a.m. alarm clock normal for you on race day?
Between 2 and 3, wow. for a full distance Ironman, it would be. So you're on site anywhere between 5 and 5:30 in the morning. We were staying out in Pembroke Dock actually last year for the race, so that brought its own logistical issues for the announcers, you know, to be able to get up, to get ready, get into town, you know, have a little bit to eat, try and make it a normal day, and with the added stress of my voice, I wasn't sleeping. So getting up at 2 o'clock, I was probably awake since 1, in bed since 10. There was no point in staying in bed. And then, of course, I was afraid I could sleep out as well, which is also another nightmare, which you don't want to happen, which has happened.
Yeah. Oh, really?
It's a race start, but I missed an announcing start for a 6 o'clock start, in Dublin in 2018. Yeah, it was scary. Never again. Never, ever. Wasn't my fault, but it was terrible. But like, I'm human, and these things happen, and you just have to move against them the next time. So every single race, I have like the hotel alarm clock, I have my alarm clock, I have a phone, and I have another alarm. And then sometimes if I'm on, and also I have the team around me, and I'm like, I'm in room X, Y, and Z. If you don't get a text from me at 2:10 in the morning or 3:10 in the morning, come banging on my door, please.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, you just, because you won't sleep, you absolutely
Yeah.
won't.
Yeah.
And your adrenaline is pumping all the time, I think.
Yeah.
That race weekend, you try and stay calm, but there's always that little bit of nervous energy and excitement, no more than the athletes.
Yeah, I think like last year, 2019 is the first year I had been down to Tenby, having done an Ironman, and I think last year I was more nervous on the start line than I was the year before when I was competing. It's and it must be the same for you as a presenter there. And I can relate to it a little bit in my, my job and the stuff I've done in the past as well. And then, yeah, it's just so similar, isn't it? That feeling. So like for the listeners, like your alarm goes off at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is. Take the listeners on a bit of a journey on kind of like what your day looks like when you're presenting an Ironman, specifically Ironman Wales. Like, where do you go? What do you do? And how the heck do you stay awake from like 3 a.m? Because I was on the finish line last year, and you were there, and that's 12 o'clock, right? It's 12 o'clock in the night. Yeah, jeepers. There's got to be a lot of coffee drunk there.
Yeah, lots of coffee, and actually just water. So like coffee will dehydrate you a little bit. So I'll bring you back to so there's a lot of work goes in before you actually even turn up to a race like Wales. So you're liaising with the race director for the weeks beforehand. You're in contact with some of the team. You're putting the race briefings together. I normally fly in on a Thursday. You might have a meeting with the race director to get the briefings set up. We'll have done our research on the professional athletes as well. Myself and Jay will do a lot of the research with the athletes, or John Levison as well from Tri247, specifically for Ironman Wales. He will help us out with some of that. So we have the knowledge to be able to talk about the professional athletes. We'll look through the athlete lists, have a look and see if there's anybody we recognize or that we know are going to be there. And then you go in, you do all your briefings. Jay and John will manage Iron Kids generally. You're brought into lots of different meetings then as well at times. You get a little bit of a downtime beforehand, but I suppose because of briefings, you're checking with the AV and the sound, and you're making sure that the sponsors' logos are in the right places. You're linking in with the guys and girls in merch. You're generally chatting to lots of people, and you're part of the whole setup, which is fabulous. Yeah. So then on say race day, so there is that really early morning wake up call. You might have a coffee. In fact, I probably had a little sniff of whiskey that morning when I woke up, to be honest. And I was definitely had a lot of paracetamol and Panadol and vitamin C tablets and anything I could get into my system to just boost my immunity and just try to help my voice. Drank lots and lots of water that day. But then you get into Tenby, and we went down onto the beach and we met the sound guys, and there's generally an embargo on the noise until 6 a.m. before you can start talking. Sorry, I forgot to say, on the Saturday we will do the running order specifically for like literally every minute or every 2 or 3 minutes, and we've done the playlist as well on Saturday, confirmed it, finalized it ourselves, what we want to play, definitely in the morning. And again, it's all timed. Like a song will finish on the pre-6:30 start list or the pre-6:30 playlist, and at 6:30 that playlist will start for the race morning, and it will be timed within an inch of its life that when we go to play the national anthem, it plays at 6:57:30. Watches are synchronized as soon as we arrive on site in the morning to make sure that we're all, me with the race referee, are on the same level. For Wales specifically, Jay or John will go and work the transition zone in the morning, encouraging the athletes to come down, because there is that 1 kilometer walk down, make sure they have their bags and everything gets into transition. And then I go live at 6 o'clock. On the beach, we play the music, we have a bit of fun, somebody gets us a bit of coffee, we set up, we're linking in, we're listening in on the comms to everything that's going on. And normally I'll switch off my comms so I'm not distracted, and then Jay will be with me and he'll relay to me any messages that need to be said or announced on the morning before we start the race. And then I suppose I've kind of gone through already, like the national anthem and the music and that. And once the race starts, then it's all gung-ho, it's a free-for-all, let's go, let's wing it. I don't know what I'm going to say when I open my mouth, really. Normally we'll have a mayor, we'll have the mayor of Tenby, or we'll have a dignitary. We might have somebody from the senior executive team from Ironman could be there. You know, last year specifically, we had meetings with Facebook Watch and things like that as well, which all had to be added into the mix, because obviously they were in, I think they were in Paris or Boulder, and all that timing had to be managed with them as well.
Wow.
And then we just start announcing, the swim gets underway, and you know, they do 2 laps. The Aussie exit on the beach there in North Beach, and they come around the Gosca Rock there that you have behind you. They go back into the water and out again, and then you've the excitement then of when the first of the professional athletes come out of the water. We get to see who they are on the timing chip, and we start continuing to get the crowd to cheer and clap. And by the time the first professional athletes are exiting the water, all the age group athletes have then entered. So you're just continually talking and trying to just tell a story every day. That's what you're trying to do, tell a story. And then once the top 3 professional female athletes have come out of the water, and there'll be some age group athletes will be through as well, potentially in that time, I'll then move to transition.
Okay.
So I will leg it. I'll literally run with my laptop and my backpack, and I'll run to transition. John and Jay will then take over announcing on the beach, and then I'll work transition until the last athlete has come out of the water. The boys will work down below and deal with that swim cut-off point as well. And unfortunately, we generally, you know, would get some athletes that maybe don't make the swim cut-off, 2 hours 20 in a full distance swim. So it's you know, they've got a tough job down there. The referee has a tough job on the water, but you know, the guys down announcing have to tell the story of, you know, unfortunately this athlete didn't make it for the swim. It's really sad, but hopefully they'll be back next year. And, you know, we've got our team on the ground minding the athlete, bringing them back up, and they're hugely disappointed that they've put so much effort in, and for whatever reason, whether it's the weather, the water, themselves, you know, it's very disappointing for them. But we do have an athlete services team that look after those athletes, and a lot of people wouldn't realize that there would be that aspect to it as well. And then T2 closes, and then we go for breakfast. So,
nice.
Sorry, T1 finishes.
T1, yeah.
We normally go for like a big breakfast, like lots of coffee. We'll have a fry. I know we shouldn't, but it might be the last time I get to eat until 5 o'clock in the day, and this is so this is like 9:45 in the morning, and then we kind of just chill. We just decompress a little bit. We watch the race. We're on the trackers. We're watching who's leading. I'm probably already in my head writing the story of what happened in the swim, so I can talk about that later in the day, and also talk about it in the awards the next day. And then we're just going back then then we go back onto T2 when the athletes are coming back in. So by the time the first professional male athlete is coming through to T2, I've probably been live on the microphone again for maybe half an hour, building up the crowd again, coming down the road there into the Rectory car park. And you're getting the spectators going and the excitement, and you're telling a story. And then I'll stay there until the 3rd professional female has come through and gone out onto the run course. And then John and Jay will work between them in T2, and then I'll head to the finish line and start to build the crowd there, start to tell a few stories, get the music rocking, link in with the finish line manager of how they're going to deliver the medals, the water, where the medics are, where everything is, and link in with the sound guys, and just get the softly music playing there, because we can hear T2 and the boys are rocking it over on the other side, giving the athletes, you know, the high fives coming into T2 and going back out again. And so then we link in with the media and the marketing teams as well on the ground, and you know, how the finish line is going to look, how the tape is going to be held. All those little tiny details are worked on with the finish line manager and the race directors, obviously, you know, making sure that it's all perfect as well. And then about half an hour maybe before we expect the winner to be down the line, we know we can see them, because Wales is very special, where the red carpet finishes the last 50 meters. You've got that turn to go out onto the run course. So maybe half an hour, 40 minutes before we expect the winner, I'll go to the end of the carpet and I'll start the commentary and start getting people excited, and again tell the story of who's overtaken who, what's happened, who was out of the water first, and kind of just go through all of that. And then the winner comes down the finish line, and we go nuts, we go crazy, we celebrate our winners, we interview them. I will generally stay on the finish line until the 3rd female pro has crossed the finish line. So we we talk to them, we give them the flowers and the celebrations with the dignitaries that are there. And then Jay or John, it's generally Jay, will come in then and he'll take over for maybe an hour, and then they'll close. John will stay over at T2. So until T2 is closed, we always have somebody over there. So each athlete is getting that same level of support and encouragement when they're coming out of T2. And then we just bounce it. Half an hour, 45 minutes on the finish line each until we get to the finish of the day. And then for about the last 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, there'll be two of us on the finish line together, bouncing and talking, because there's such a big gap between athletes as well. That we just have fun. We just absolutely have fun. And you're trying to, at that stage, you're trying to keep the crowd as much as possible there, enjoying it, so that the last athletes that come to the finish line are getting the same level of experience and enjoyment that the first athletes come down.
I was on the finish line last year for the first time for the last hour between kind of like 11 and 12 o'clock, and I could not believe how many people were there. It was phenomenal. And I almost feel like, I mean, you can probably confirm this, but I almost feel like the crowd between, you know, that last hour or two is almost louder and bigger than what it is when the first professional male and female cross the line. It's it's very, very special, and it opened my eyes massively to what it was like there the last couple of hours.
It's amazing. And the athlete that comes down the finish line last is getting the same level of respect and support as the athlete that's won it. And I think that's very special as well at Ironman, that the professional athletes come back and they present some medals and things like that as well to the athletes, and they congratulate them. And really, it's like a big outdoor nightclub in one way. And you just want to have fun and keep the tunes rocking, and just like embrace it all and have loads and loads of fun on the finish line, because we're not just there for the athletes, we're there for the spectators as well. And we love it. I mean, we absolutely love it. I know it's a long day, and it's a long day for everyone, but we really, really do enjoy it.
Oh, I bet. So like, given that you spend like a lot of time on the start line and the finish line, if there was some listeners here now who've not done Ironman Wales before, and they want to get some tips about things to avoid on the start line and maybe the finish line, what would be your top tips to anybody who's doing Ironman in Tenby for the first time? You know, what do they need to think about and potentially avoid?
Oh God. Well, the very first thing, and we're famous for it in Wales, is the pink bags. Your pink bag on the rack, and it would be remiss of me not to say, not leave your pink bag on the rack. So in every other race, you don't have a pink bag, but in Wales, you must play, because it's such a long walk from T1 to the swim start. There's a rack on the zigzags where you run out of the water, where you put your runners to run back to transition. So if you leave your pink bag there on race day, it's considered littering. So for the last number of years, we've had to just instill it in people: do not leave your pink bag on the racks, because you will be disqualified. So that's the biggest no, do not leave. It's considered littering, and it's an automatic DQ. And they're very strict about it, which is fair enough, because you don't want to see plastic bags in the sea. You don't want to see them flying around the town.
Just out of interest on that point there, is it common for people to get disqualified because of those pink bags? Because I seen a couple of people like run back for their pink bag last year, and I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so last year. I think like it was almost a running joke. How many times could I see a pink bag in a briefing? And even afterwards, people, you know, the way people get their medals framed and their race numbers framed, they were practically framing their pink bags, you know, so it was funny. But I mean, you know, we don't want to see littering. You don't want to see the beautiful town of Tenby destroyed in pink bags or wrappers of gels or rubbish. The other thing I suppose as well is Wales is a tough course. You know, it is pitched as one of the tougher courses. It's like Lanzarote. So know the profile of what you're going to do if you're going out racing in Wales. Understand the elevation, know the course, and that would be the same for every race though, Tom, because you really should know the course that you're going to do. And also, you know, it's a long day. It is a really long day, and Tenby is hilly. You know, the run is hilly. We often laughed that the only thing that was flat in Tenby was the swim. And at times the swim was almost uphill as well because the weather was bad. But yeah, that's the main thing really. And just give yourself plenty of time to enjoy the atmosphere. I think people rush, you know, they spend so much time in transition that they rush then to try and get into the water. But really you're faffing in transition when you're kind of done. And in Wales, the beach is where it's at. And getting that walk down, all the hundreds of athletes, the thousands of spectators, and getting to be part of that beach, I think for me is really special.
I agree.
And embracing the crowds. I mean, Tenby is phenomenal in terms of the small streets, the people on the streets. You put your hands out at certain points and you're actually tipping off spectators on both sides. I mean, you don't get that at every race or in many races, and to be prepared for that as well, and to embrace it, because that is lots of what makes Tenby so special is the people.
I agree, and especially on that start line as well. You know, I've been lucky to watch it for a number of years, and you see so many people who are obviously nervous, and you know they look really nervous and they look really serious, and they just, you know, almost focusing on, you know, the event a little bit too much rather than kind of just absorbing the crowd, absorbing the moment, enjoying it, enjoying the anthem, enjoying interacting with the other athletes, you know. And it's like it's a celebration, isn't it? The event, it's a celebration. You're training, and I agree with you there. Just get involved.
Saundersfoot. I mean, Saundersfoot is, for anybody who hasn't been to Wales, Saundersfoot is like this. You know, you come in around the corner by St. Bride's and Saundersfoot, and oh my word, the crowds, you wouldn't get it on the Tour de France. I mean,
no, it's crackers.
It's unreal, and so many people. And I think last year actually they had to go out and put out more ped barriers out there because there were so many people. And it's like Windmill Hill in Ireland was so busy last year as well. I think it's a 400 meters of a hill with an average of a 21% grade for 60 meters of it, but it was like 5 deep with people in the lashing rain. But the athletes didn't really feel the hill because there was so many spectators. And I think that's, you know, that you can give yourself permission to enjoy it. Yes, you might be going for a really fast time or a personal best, or, you know, wanted to beat a time from a previous year. But if you don't give yourself the chance or the permission to enjoy it, then you're missing something very special about Tenby.
I agree. I think the event itself is something for me. Like I enjoy competing. I enjoy the training, and you know the performance for me is quite important. I want to beat my time. You know, now it's going to be next year. I want to beat my PB, but I was kind of considering this year if they were going to change the event in any way and potentially, you know, move T1, move T2, perhaps change the marathon to an out and back to spread the crowds out a little bit. There was all this talk around the event this year. Like I was considering personally even deferring, even if the event did go ahead, because I know how special the event is and how special the crowds are, and just all of the crowds being in that town centre, you know, especially for the marathon. It's just, it's incredible. It's really difficult to explain if you've not done it or you've not been there. It's difficult to explain, but for anybody who's spectated or has done the event, they'll know exactly how it feels, and it's amazing.
You have people spilling out of the pubs as well, and they're drinking. Not in a negative way, but like there's a street party because it's the athletes, and the athletes are in the town because everything is so close that the athletes come out of their B&Bs and their hotels again, and they come back out onto the streets, and then you get the waft of fish and chips. As well everywhere, and you know, when we get to take a break, we get to walk around as much as possible where we can, you know, and we get to soak in that atmosphere as well and enjoy it. But it's just a very special place, and so many fond memories of athletes that have been there and things that we've done, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I've not got any more questions. I think we've covered quite a lot there. And for anybody who's listening, who's not done the event, I think there'll be some value there in listening to, you know, kind of all your tips and tricks about the start line and the event in general. So I want to say a big thank you. But before we finish, I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you that I'd like to go through. I've adapted this a little bit to previous podcasts that I've done. So I'm going to fire through these, and it'd be interesting to see what you say. Okay. So pool swim or open water swim?
Open water.
TT or road bike?
Oh, that's hard. I have Freddie, who's a road bike with TT bars, and then I have Teddy, who's a TT bike. Oh, I love Freddie. I'm going to have to go with a road bike. Is this for Wales? TT bike or a road bike? I'd say use a road bike with TT bars for Wales, personally. Sure. Yeah.
5K race or 10K race?
10K.
Half marathon or full marathon?
Oh God, half.
Yeah, I seen you've done New York, by the way.
Yeah.
How was that?
I trained for 6 weeks to do a marathon. Not a good idea. Trained for 6 weeks one year and trained for 5 the following year. Not a good idea, but amazing, incredible. If you can race it at the New York Marathon, I would highly recommend it. Class.
70.3 or full Ironman?
I think 70.3. For me personally, 70.3. I think the commitment to Ironman sometimes is too much. Although I would like to be called an Ironman someday, so maybe it's in my future.
Here we go. This is where I've started to adapt this now. Okay, so soda bread or sourdough?
Oh, sourdough.
Oh, really?
Sourdough with real Kerrygold butter.
Oh, Kerrygold is the best. Yeah. Yes. I had you nailed on there for Irish soda bread.
Sourdough with real butter, toasted, and maybe even made like a cheese and ham toasty.
Ah, nice. Yeah. And flat white. That's one of my questions. You've answered that before I've even asked it. Flat white or an espresso?
Flat white.
Pizza or pasta?
Pizza.
Roast potatoes or champ?
Roast potatoes. Although I do love mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
Again, with real Kerrygold butter and milk and salt and scallions.
Nice. Black pudding or white pudding?
Depends on the brand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, definitely.
So you're a connoisseur?
I wouldn't say I'm a connoisseur, but there's a couple of really good black and white pudding brands here in Ireland, and some I prefer the black and some I prefer the white.
Okay, I've not tried white pudding that much, but every time I've tried it, I've been in Ireland and I thought it's amazing. Yeah, it's class. So to finish off, then, if you could choose 4 people to go training with, whether it's a bike, run, whatever, who would those 4 people be and why?
Okay, so I'm going to say Laura Siddle and Nikki Bartlett, because they are the best crack ever. And when we get together, either online or in person, we never stop talking, we never stop laughing. So I guarantee it's going to be a good session and a hard session. Don't think they'd wait for me, but I know that we have great fun.
Laura was incredible on the finish line last year.
Oh, they were brilliant. And actually, Lucy, I have to limit it to 4. That's not fair. I'd have to put Lucy Gossage in there as well, because she was the queen of racing at Ironman Wales. But actually, I actually can't answer that question properly now, because that's not fair to all the other athletes that I would love to. No, I'm not going to finish that question. No, there's too many. There's way too many. I think of like Kate Stannett. I think of Tarsh Went. Simone Mitchell, who won last year. No, I couldn't. I actually can't answer that question now. That's not. So fair.
it'd be a group ride.
Right, but then I'd love to put Jay, Luke, Paul, Kay, Mike Riley, Andrew Messick, Alistair Brownlee, Javier Gomez, Chris Minturn in Ireland, Brian McChrystal. I mean, there's just so many. not answering the question.
Brilliant.
There's so many athletes. I mean, there's Russell Williams, who is from Wales and did an Ironman in his conservatory. There's so many inspirational people out there that are either professionals or they're working with us, or I've come across in my career, that it's really hard to pick 4.
Yeah, sure. I was lucky. I interviewed. What's that?
For a bike ride, maybe you and I should go for dinner. Go for a bike
100%.
Ride. That'd be, I mean, it's class.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it next year.
I'm in Wales.
Awesome. So I would just like to say, Joanne, a massive thank you for giving me your time. I'm sure all the listeners are going to appreciate it, and I'm going to take a lot of value from the podcast. Before we finish, if any of the listeners want to follow you or follow your work, where can they find you?
The easiest place is probably on talkingsport.com. So there's a website there, and there's links to the podcast, or you can follow me at Joanne.Murphy on Instagram or anywhere. But thank you so much, Tom, for the opportunity to talk about like one of the best races in the world, and by far one of my favorites. And that's not discounting Ironman Ireland, which obviously is a favorite as well. But I'm delighted to have been part of your road to Tenby, and I want to wish you the very best of luck with your training. I'm so disappointed we're not going to be in Tenby in September of 2020, but roll on 2021, because that dragon is going to be loud. And
she is indeed. She is indeed. Yeah. Well, thanks once again, Joanne. And I look forward to seeing you next year. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take care.